Hey everybody, welcome to End Times Bible Study. My name is Diane, and thank you so much for joining me today for our weekly Bible study. So we are on part two of a two-part series dealing with letter 17 of the alphabet, followed by the word Anon. So think about what that would be. I'm afraid to say it, although I noticed I did slip up on my video last week and said it twice. But sometimes I've seen that videos can get taken down if you talk about this subject. So just be on the safe side, I'm trying to just say 17 and you'll know what I mean. But anyways, last week we talked about kind of an overview of 17 and specific failed prophecies, among other things. So if you missed that one, you can go back and watch that. It's on my channel. And then today we're going to be talking about letter 17 and the New Age connections that are there, and three specific 17 and on influencers, which would be Simon Parks, Scott McKay, and General Michael Flynn. So we'll be looking at all three of those gentlemen. So we're going to start off with just defining what the New Age is, because you can't really recognize it if you don't know what it means. So I'm going to make myself smaller, and we are going to be looking at this website to start with, called gotquestions.org. And this is their definition on what is the New Age. So just kind of skim through some points here. But number one, it's what is known as monism, the belief that all is one and one is all. So history is not the story of humanity's fall into sin and its restoration by God's saving grace. Rather, it is humanity's fall into ignorance and the gradual ascent into enlightenment, or in other words, the Great Awakening. Number two, all is God. So if all is one, including God, then one must conclude that all is God. It is pantheism. Trees, snails, books, and people are all of one divine essence. A personal God who has revealed himself in the Bible and in Jesus Christ is completely rejected. Since God is impersonal, the New Ager doesn't have to serve him, because God is an it and not a he. And then number three, there's a change in consciousness. If we are God, we need to know that we are God. We must become cosmically conscious, enlightened, or attuned to the cosmic consciousness. Some who reach this enlightened status will claim to be born again, which is a counterfeit of biblical conversion. The essential is not whether we believe or meditate, but whom we believe in and what we meditate upon. Because for Christians, the Bible does say meditate on the word, but this is different than the New Age meditation. This just means you're reading the Bible and you're thinking about what it means. And it's like a conscious thought sort of thing. Whereas in New Age meditation, that you basically empty your mind, and then so you're trying to have this just blank mind, and then you get a word like Om or something, and you just keep repeating that over and over and try to reach this higher state of consciousness. And often that's combined with doing yoga poses, which I would point out that those yoga poses are tied to various Hindu gods. So that's personally not something I want to be doing. All right, so oh wait, I don't think we did finish that. So Christ is the true personal objective reality, as he said that he is the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through him, John 14:6. And then number four, another point for New Age is a cosmic evolutionary optimism is taught. There is a new age coming. There will be a new world order, a new world government. New Age thinkers believe that there will eventually be a progressive unification of world consciousness. This, according to the Bible, is a counterfeit kingdom led by Satan himself. Christ has the true kingdom, and he will one day rule on earth with peace for all who accept him as Savior and King. That's Revelation 5:13. And then New Agers create their own reality. They believe they can create reality from what they believe, and by changing what they believe, they can change reality. All moral boundaries have been erased. There are no absolutes because there is no distinction between good and evil. Nothing has reality until one says that it is reality or says that it is truth. If finite man can create truth, we are in desperate trouble in our society. Unless there are eternal absolutes from the eternal God, man will eventually be his own destruction. And we do see a lot of this new age thinking and practices has invaded into the church. So this is a very serious problem. Christians need to be aware of what new age is and identify this and reject it if it's in your church. And I do think that the whole decree and declare sort of thing, and we can call things into being that are not, which that's a verse taken out of context that's referring to what God can do, not what we can do. But anyways, that's there's that. And then number six, new agers make contact with the kingdom of darkness, basically the demonic realm. That's what we've got happening here. Calling a medium a quote channeler and a demon a spirit guide has not changed the reality of what they are. This is the kingdom of darkness of which Satan is the head. Those involved in this kind of activity are in contact with a world that is totally opposed to the biblical God revealed to us in Jesus Christ, who defeated Satan. And they give a couple verses there for that. All right, the New Age movement is a counterfeit philosophy that appeals to the feelings of individuals, leading them to think that they are God and they can enhance their lives through their own person. Okay, and again, that's another false teaching within the church is that, oh, well, we're little gods. You know, people, um, prominent pastors, teachers, false prophets, so forth, are like literally stating that we are gods. All right, we're not. So that is unbiblical. And it says the reality is that we are born, grow up, live a while on planet Earth, and die. Humans are finite. We can never be God. We need someone greater than we who can provide us forgiveness and life eternal. Praise the Lord for the God man, Jesus Christ. Through his death and bodily resurrection, he has won for us what we desperately need: forgiveness from God, a life of purpose and meaning in this life, and eternal life beyond the grave. Don't miss out on who Jesus Christ is and what he has done for you. Read John chapter 3. Ask Christ to be your Savior. Your life will be transformed and you will know who you are, why you are here, and where you are going. All right, so that's kind of just, I mean, we could spend hours talking about New Age, but that's for our purposes, that hopefully will suffice. All right, so the next thing I want to look at is something called the Great Awakening Map. Now, I came across this a couple years ago, and at the time, I did not know how to do a video where I could show my screen and show this information. And it's kind of a lot to try to show on a computer screen, anyways. But this website is the Great Awakening Report. And originally, in fact, I might start at the bottom of this map because originally, when I first looked at this website a couple years ago, they had three separate maps. And it was kind of like going in stages. So I think the top of it here is the end. So we might start at the bottom. But the Great Awakening map is the supreme red pill navigational chart for, let me make that bigger, for escaping the matrix and returning to source. All right. And they talk about how they ship the maps around the globe. Over a decade of metaphysical research, i.e., occult, basically, was collected prior to the map's release in mid 2018. Its continual design is produced and adapted. Okay, we don't need to read that. All right, so here's the map. And notice at the top, this is the goal. You know, we have artificial intelligence signal with an arrow, originally at one with the creator. I hope you guys can see this because it's kind of not a lot of contrast here. And then an arrow to one infinite creator, escape samsara, the mystery of universal creation, return to source, empty awareness and to suffering, the one, the higher realms and Buddha fields. Okay. So when they're talking about God in this, one infinite creator, they're not talking about the God of the Bible. All right. Samsara is this it's a yeah, like a belief that's tied into both Hinduism and Buddhism. And in fact, let me just pull up really quickly. Samsara itself means wandering as well as world, wherein the term connotes cyclic change. And samsara is a fundamental concept in all Indian religions. It's linked to the karma theory and refers to the belief that living beings cyclically go through births and rebirths. So it's essentially reincarnation is what they're talking about. So you keep going through all these, you have to, you die, and then based on your karma, were you a good, I guess, a good person in this life? And then whatever things you did that were wrong, you have to pay for that in your next life. And you keep going through these endless cycles until finally, if you're successful, you finally reach nirvana where you're no longer having to go through all of this. So, but note, I mean, this is right here at the top of the chart. Now, I'm just going to kind of scroll down, like it's on both sides. So there's a lot of information here. What I see a lot of on here is occult sort of stuff, meditation. They have this collective consciousness, practice meditation. They have, let's see, the sun. They have a lot of stuff to deal with aliens. And we have reptilians. Here's one where it's like reptilians found infested with virulent nanite AI. Then we have a Luciferian force, question mark, an energy that's throughout the universe. A portion of the creator believes itself to be separate from the creator, thinks it can overtake the universe. So I guess that must be how they're defining a Luciferian force. But I hate to tell you, but Satan is not a part of God. God is like a being that's his own self. It's not like he's in everything and everything is in him and that he's in the rocks and all that. Again, that's that new age teaching. So Satan is not, I mean, God is good. You can't have like evil as a part of God. So uh let's see here. So they have all this stuff. Draco and Reptilian Alliance. Um so all kinds of stuff to do with that. Human slave labor. They have Saturn. All right, now notice they have the Great Awakening here. We are using our co-collective consciousness to manifest the optimal timeline reality for Earth. All right, the ancient builder race with blue avians, multi-dimensional hieroglyphic writing, all sorts of stuff with that. Okay. Notice everything is an illusion. So again, more like kind of Eastern religion sort of teaching there. The entire universe is the emanation of a single holographic photon. Okay. All right. But what we're getting down to on this is okay, secret space program, awakening consciousness, sound healing. Uh, they have all this, eat live foods, drink clean water, detox your body, raise your vibration, and meditate. So all this raising your vibrations and so forth is again more new age sort of stuff. Now, this is where it gets really interesting to me because you have down here the letter 17 in the center. Now, in this little bubble, we have the storm at the top. Then we have 17 Anon, high rank military generals. And then we have Trump underneath, because supposedly Trump was recruited by this group of military generals to run for president and then take out the deep state. That's the whole narrative with that. Now, the WWG1 WGA, we talked about that last week. The where we go one, we go all. That's like, a whole 17 saying. Then we have the Anons. We're looking over here on the right. So Anons, we have patriots, release free energy, arrest pedophiles, and human trafficking. And I made this point last week, which is there is these things are good. excuse me, going on. So it's not that we're saying, okay, there is no human trafficking or anything. There's a lot of it, and it's horrendous. And we should be trying to stop that and doing what we can. But I feel like what 17 did is latched on to something that most people could agree with and then use that to suck people in. But, the reality is how much are they really, how much is 17 really doing to actually stop this problem? The actual organizations that fight child sex trafficking have complained that this 17 has been hindering their efforts. And I think we covered that last week, if I remember. But anyways, we have follow the white rabbit, trust the plan. Again, there's always this big trust the plan. It's like, well, what is the plan? Somebody who was kind of on the fringes of this. We have tribunals at the bottom and the Fed. Let me just go back up to the beginning here, where we have anonymous meme wars, drain the swamp, geotuss. Now that I'm not familiar with. Hear all, see all. We have white hats, 17 map. So I guess that's what this thing is. The Pleiadian guidance. So apparently we're looking to aliens for guidance. 8chan and 4chan. 4chan, as I recall, that's where 17 drops first started on that internet site, and then later it moved to 8chan. And then North Korea peace. Why North Korea is singled out of all the countries on the planet, I'm not sure. But there's that. And we have CIA ousted, creation of Space Force, which, if I'm not mistaken, Trump is the one who did that, and tribunals at the bottom. And again, this has been this whole thing, which is ties in with these over on the side. They have sealed indictments. I've been hearing this for like 4 years that, oh, there's all these sealed indictments ready to go, and they're going to be served, and all these people like Hillary Clinton and so forth will be rounded up and taken to Guantanamo, and there will be military tribunals because of all their treason and so forth. Now, I'm not saying these people aren't, that they're good people, that they haven't done any crimes. I think that is pretty questionable as far as the sort of things they've been involved with. So I'm not disputing that, but what it is with these things, you take a little bit of truth and then you link it into all this other stuff that's actually not true, and then there's a problem. So yeah, so red pill the masses, flat earth psyop. Yeah, I mean, does that mean all these people claiming the earth is flat are running a psyop because the earth is not flat? But again, the Great Awakening, escape the matrix. Okay. All right. And somewhere on here, I was trying to find it because somewhere on here they had the third eye that they were talking about. And I can't remember where it is on here, but I'm going to talk about that third eye a little bit because have seen that. I was arguing with some 17 Anon person who was on my Telegram channel, and well, one of them, not the one that I advertise in here. I do have a Telegram channel that's like a news update that I try to keep up with worldwide news stuff you're probably not hearing in the mainstream media. So I encourage you to follow that. The link's in the description box. But it was a different channel, and they were arguing, and they were talking about, the third eye and all this stuff. And a lot, I think this is even getting talked about now within like uh, professing Christians, with some of all these false prophets and false teachers that are out there. The third eye has come up. So I want to just briefly touch on the third eye. The pineal gland was commonly called the third eye for many reasons, including its location deep in the center of the brain and its connection to light via the circadian rhythm and melatonin secretion. Many spiritual traditions believe it serves as a connection between the physical and spiritual worlds. And okay, yeah, this is actually where I wanted to. Madame Helena Blavatsky, the founder of Theosophy, okay, I'm reading right here, uh, believed the pineal gland was a remnant of an organ of spiritual vision. Now, this woman is very, she's dead now, but she's very demonic looking. I'm going to have a picture of her later on a video I'm going to show you. And just when you look in her eyes, there's something wrong. She looks like she's demon possessed. But she was into all this occultism and hugely influential in the New Age movement. Really, kind of a lot of stuff ended up stemming, I think, from a lot of her initial writings. I think she was like late 1800s or somewhere in that time period, maybe early 1900s. Let's see. Ancient concepts about the soul also regarded the pineal gland as a gateway to spiritual life. Some say that certain yoga poses, like downward facing dog or child's pose, can help stimulate the pineal gland and activate the third eye. So I would caution you against activating the third eye. I personally think that can leave you open to demonic possession. Um, Although if you are a true born again Christian, you cannot be possessed by demons. But nevertheless, this is not something that you should be fooling with. Okay, this has occult things and it's not good. So, all right, so I would encourage you, all the links I'm covering are in the description box. So you can go back and look at this map in more detail. This is another part of their website. Um, okay. This of the Great Awakening report. So, all right, so see here, it's just so I was like who we are. So it says we are a dedicated community of truth seekers, unwavering in our commitment to research and uncovering our true reality. And again, it's like, well, I'm a truth seeker, but I find my truth through the Bible and not through all this other New Age stuff. But comprising awakened researchers, investigators, and truth seekers, our subscribers are united in the pursuit of authentic information and elevating the collective consciousness of our planet. Guided by the principles of truth, awakening, and disclosure, our platform is designed to offer intuitive guidance and support to fellow truth seekers. All right, together we embody the essence of 7 burgeoning movements: Patriot, Truth; 17, Disclosure; Christian, Conscious, and Awakened. And I'm kind of wondering if the order, if you start at the bottom of that chart and work your way up, that fits. Although Christian, I'm not sure where they're coming up with that, because Christian has nothing to do with that chart I just showed you. But the rest of it, because it does end with the Great Awakening and you're awakened. So I'm not sure if they're trying to somehow imply there's a progression here. But I do find that very disturbing, that what they have on here, that 17 is on here. Also, that they're trying to claim this is somehow Christian when it's not. And disclosure, as it turns out, is actually all this alien sort of stuff. And we'll talk about more about that in a second. But freed from the influence of mainstream media, we champion open-mindedness and inclusivity in our quest for truth. While we avoid political and religious discourse, we acknowledge the profound impact of corruption in our society. And again, I don't disagree that our society is completely corrupt, that the mainstream media is propaganda and lies, that there's a lot of problems here. So, but it says our efforts span diverse topics, including geopolitics, climate change, health and wellness, history, and spiritual practices, which are occult practices. As pioneers and visionaries, we serve as mentors, advisors, and consultants, guiding our community through the transformative journey towards the Great Awakening. Okay, so to me, that was pretty mind-blowing, to be honest with you, when I read all that. Now, this is another thing that talks about, it's the global network of extremism and technology. So they weren't really I don't think, for this, but they're just explaining some information. So the inventor of the Great Awakening map is a Thai-American hyperdimensional disclosure artist. So that word disclosure is talking about aliens, called Champ Parinya. His association with Guru Jagat, a Californian New Age oracle, must have been instrumental for creating this mammoth red pill learning tool, a mother of all memes type, one-page chart to immerse users in a whole new alternative reality. What is interesting is that the Great Awakening map has nothing to do with extremism. Its main aim is to guide people to escape the so-called matrix, a metaphor to the current system, and return to something called the source, or in simple terms, God. Okay, so now the God they are talking about there is not the God of the Bible. This is a false New Age God. This is all totally New Age. It has nothing to do with the everything the Bible is teaching and who God is. So the Great Awakening map's deep origin is in the contemporary New Age movement, as I was just saying. It evolves like a hydra associating with the disclosure movement, a syndicate of activists who hold on to an alternative reality about extraterrestrials. So there it is. It's like the whole alien connection. Now, we're seeing a huge explosion of all this alien sort of stuff. And in the past, where it was kind of like, well, it's just science fiction or discredited or whatever, it's now hugely mainstream. And many people are claiming they've had, I've been abducted by an alien or whatever, and these different experiences. And what I've found through the research I've done is that the people who end up um, talking about these sort of things, they're involved in occult practices. All right. So think when you're involved in occult things, you are opening yourself up to demonic influences and oppression. I think that the whole alien thing is all a total scam for it's actually demons impersonating these aliens. And if you want to read a really good book on it, it's called, and it's backwards for you guys, but I'll show you. It's called Alien Intrusion. It's UFOs and the Evolution Connection by Gary Bates. So I think it's on Amazon. If not, they sell it on the Creation Ministries International website. So it's been a long time since I wrote it. Read it. And it was, yeah, this was back in 2004 when it was written. So it's an older book, but giving the Christian perspective on it, it's really, really fascinating. So I would recommend that. And I'd recommend, again, the alien narrative. If you're a Bible believing Christian, aliens doesn't fit in with that. It's like, okay, God creates man, Adam and Eve on Earth and creates Earth and the universe. There's no mention of anybody else elsewhere, or and really the whole alien thing is it depends on, well, life all just evolved. So we've evolved here in as these humans, but other life has evolved elsewhere. That's something else, and again, evolution is contrary to what the Bible is teaching. And again, like man fell, Adam and Eve sinned, brought sin into the world. Jesus, that's why Jesus came. God the Son came down and said, okay, I'm going to pay that price for all their sins. I'm going to die on the cross. I'll take all that on myself. And died, buried, rose again 3 days later, proving he was God. And he's coming back again at the end of the 7-year tribulation. So, but the, so what are you going to say? Like, okay, well, did any aliens sin? Like, how did they, did Jesus have to go die for them? It's not compatible with the biblical worldview. So there's a lot of problems with that. And, um, I would encourage you to trust, if you're a professing Christian, trust what the Bible is teaching and not all this other stuff. So, all right. So then it goes on to say it also associates with popular conspiracy cultures right here. And then conspiracies now find a new lease of life thanks to once shunned conspiracy theorists emerging online as truth seekers and protagonists who fight the current system. Great Awakening maps march forward, sees it then tap into thousand-year-old religious belief systems. Now they talk about millenarianism. I'm assuming, are they talking about like the 1,000-year millennial reign of Jesus Christ here on earth from Jerusalem? That has nothing to do with anything they're teaching, but there's that. Then they have messianism. So the belief in a returning Messiah, which certainly for Christianity, that's Jesus Christ, who, like I said, will be back at the end of the 7-year tribulation at the Battle of Armageddon to vanquish the Antichrist and his forces. But a lot of these other religions are waiting for their own version of the Messiah. And so, again, a lot of people, the Muslims are looking for their Mahdi. The Jews are waiting on, they don't realize their Messiah came the first time. So, they're still waiting for that. You had last week, I think we talked about the Maitreya, who was, or did we talk about that? Well, anyways, he was another, messianic figure scheduled to come and so on. So, anyways, messianism and then elements of ancient Hindu, Egyptian, and Tibetan faiths. Again, none of that's Christian. The Great Awakening map absorbs spirituality, religions, UFO cults, and conspiracy into a digital foundry, molding and casting a giant narrative of everything and anything. It then decorates this massive red pill using something that goes well with the maverick character of the internet creative fantasy, which attracts followers for the same reason the fantasy genre attracts followers. So, all right, so that's all we're going to talk about the Great Awakening map, but I am going to show you a Bible verse, which I've shown this before, but it's the true Great Awakening. So Paul was called before King Agrippa, and he's telling Agrippa basically his story. And this was God had spoken to Paul and said, I will rescue you from your own people and from the Gentiles. I am sending you to them to open their eyes so that they may turn from darkness to light and from the power of Satan to God, that they may receive forgiveness of sins and an inheritance among those sanctified by faith in me. So that's the true Great Awakening, all right? Oh, having our eyes opened and turning from darkness to light, unlike the 17 dark to light saying. But this is from the power of Satan to God, so we can receive forgiveness of sins and then, an inheritance, meaning being with God forever once we die and going to heaven and all that. So, and I can't remember, did I say the verse? It's Acts 26:18, in case I didn't say that. All right, so now we're going to move on and talk about Simon Parks, which again, people were sending me videos of some of these people, including this guy after the 2020 election debacle. But he is a new ager. We're going to look at his website briefly as well. But he claims that letter 17 is a quantum computer that went into the future, and that there's this individual who basically manages the intel, and that person is embedded in the Trump administration. So let me see here. Let me back this up a little bit and see. Let's start about there and see what he's got to say.
The vast majority of people in the Q movement do not know who Q is. They don't even know who the people are around making things happen at that level. And that's quite right. And that's as it should be. Now, the person I spoke to over an hour and a half was chosen by, they said to me, I was chosen by the administration. That's the wording they used. I say that's Trump. They were chosen by the administration. And they were chosen to be involved and to do the front-facing work, if you like, the paperwork. So that is the person who I spoke to. It's quite true that Q won't do external material, but the person fronting Q, and I don't mean pretending, I mean the person who is responsible for maintaining the network is able to do that communications. And as I said, that's the person that I spoke to, has some incredibly interesting and accurate intel, is embedded with the Trump team and has been, and is very, very closely associated with Q, with the dissemination of information, with the way that it is understood and pushed out. But in terms of say managing people is too grand a word, but in terms of maintaining the impetus, maintaining the power behind it, maintaining the focus and the drive, making sure that that stays through. And that person is associated with the president, and that person has spoken to me. Now,
All right, so I'll leave the link for this video if you want to watch it. I noticed that they do have the letter here, who is, the letter on their video, and it seems to be up. Now, he was talking on January 12th of 2021. So this is like shortly before Biden's inauguration. And again, I mean, and just in looking back in retrospect, this just seems like a total crock, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't believe any of this, that there was I don't believe there was a quantum computer. And that might have been, I think I played it, maybe that was before I started I mean, I don't think I played that part, but it's on there. But, you know, a quantum computer that went into the future and then now got all this information, and that these are the drops and so forth. And look how inaccurate, now that we're looking back on things. And like I said, we covered that in more detail last week. All the false predictions. It's like, and you're trying to say this person's tied to Trump. And then, initially at the time, even he was one of the ones, I think, too. And Scott McKay, they're like, oh, Biden's not going to be inaugurated. And there was going to be this whole big thing. And the military was supposed to come in and arrest all these people. And uh, it didn't, none of that happened. Okay, so that was like a huge red flag right there, that there's something wrong with this whole movement. So let's take a quick look at, let me see, that's his website. So I looked at his website like 4 years ago, and at the time he had more stuff on the front page talking about all this alien stuff, which didn't give me a good feeling. But this one is like connecting consciousness. So again, new age, monthly spiritual topics. And they talk about like their aims, and it says, we are all on a unique journey to grow, find greater meaning, purpose, and joy in life. Which for a Christian, you already should have all that, because you already have we know what our meaning, our purpose, and the Holy Spirit gives us joy. So to do this entails a deep focus on one's inner self. Okay, wrong. A 13th century Persian poet, Rumi, stated, everything in the universe is within you. Ask all from yourself. Okay, I'm sorry, but you know what? The answers are not inside of me. You know, I'm a fallen, sinful person in need of salvation from Jesus Christ. And Jesus Christ is the one who has everything I need. We don't ask ourselves, we ask Jesus Christ to come into our life and to be our Lord and Savior, and follow him. And that's going to give you what these people are looking for. Um, you know, but anyways, it says that the things they're trying to do, their monthly spiritual topics, it's access their own inner knowledge and inner authority, understand their spirituality, recognize, acknowledge, and heal their shadow side, heal whatever that is, heal inner wounds, develop their sovereignty, apply knowledge learned for their highest and greatest good, become more understanding and compassionate, which that's that's a noble goal, and then more easily handle challenges and so forth. So yeah, that's his website, where he has all these different things he's talking about there. And then this other site was heavy.com. I really wasn't familiar with them, probably more liberal sites, but they have a bunch of videos on here where you can play those videos and see what Parks is having to say. And yeah, 17 was originally 17 was four guys at a quantum computer, and it was purely a military operation. It operates at or on the speed of light and is able to see into the future and predict right back in 2016 and 2017. information was produced, which has an absolute effect today. It's playing out now. So then he goes on about that. But there was an interesting thing about Parks. Okay, Parks previously claimed his mother was a green alien. And then, let's see, he claimed he was adopted as a baby by a 9 foot tall green alien, which explained that she was his, quote, real, more important mother. Later, when he was 11, she took him on board her spacecraft and a deal was struck about contact between the two worlds. So, anyways, so that's kind of a quick thing on Simon Parks, but certainly as a believer, I find his information is sketchy, and especially based on the happenings of the past several years and the failures of the 17 prophecies. So, all right, so let's move on to Scott McKay. And he's also known as Patriot Street Fighter. Now, this is from the, what is that? Alliance. Wait, something Defense League. I don't know. They're liberal. They probably would consider me. They'd probably put me on their list if they knew who I was. But so I mean, you have to keep that with a grain of salt. But I mean, they did say that Scott McKay, also known as Patriot Street Fighter, is an anti-Semitic 17 Anon influencer and radio show host who regularly promotes conspiracy theories about the Khazarian mafia. McKay frequently travels across the United States to speak at various, according to them, far right events. He was a regular speaker at Clay Clark's Reawaken America conferences until he was dropped from the lineup in May of 2023 following extensive media reporting and public scrutiny of his anti Semitic remarks. And apparently, he's actually been like praising Hitler and stuff. I never heard him do that. I used to listen to him for, I'd say, several months probably. But he would always say, well, do your own research. And he'd make these outlandish statements. And I would go do my own research and I couldn't find anything to back up what he was talking about. Now, he did talk about the Khazarian mafia, which I had never heard of before, but it's it's a whole discredited thing. The Khazars, and I talked about all this on my I did a whole like a 4-part series on like what the Bible really teaches about the Jews, like all the biblical prophecies still to be fulfilled for the Jews. And then also I did like the 3 things that was like anti-Semitic tropes and so forth. Let me see if I can pause this. Okay, good. Sorry, the dog's barking in the background. I was trying to get him to quiet down. Um, but yeah, so there's all these anti-Semitic tropes and lies about the Jews, and the Khazar thing. The Khazars were, what was it, like Middle Ages? Now I forget because it's been a couple, maybe 2 months since I did this one, but they lived somewhere around the region of like kind of Ukraine-ish, like above the Black Sea, Russia, somewhere in that area. And so they were this whole tribe. Well, the claim is that they all converted to Judaism, but then they have no actual bloodline for Judaism, and then they went back, I guess, to Israel, and they're bad people that are fake Jews, and they're running the show or whatever. So it's all like a complete fabrication, and you can debunk it easily with genetics and stuff like that. So that has been, I've personally debunked it. So it's like a conspiracy theory, but he does talk about that. So, um, but he also would talk about, he's a very likable guy. I mean, I enjoyed listening to him, and he seemed to know what he was talking about initially. But he would talk favorably about like Jesus Christ, but then he would also be talking about, well, the next step in our spiritual evolution or something like that. And I was like, that sounds weird. And I mean, I thought at the time, okay, he's a patriot and, he's trying to do the right thing, for our country and whatnot. But I never actually believed he was a born again Christian because, I mean, you kind of just know if you're a Christian, you can recognize. So, Anyways, I'm just gonna play a little bit. He was on this radio program with, who was the other guy's name? I don't know who the other guy, oh, Steve somebody. But anyways, so this was just a radio thing. So it starts kind of right when he's coming on. I'm just gonna play a minute or two.
Well, buddy, I'm telling you, you are one of the most tenacious people I've encountered in the Great Awakening. I freaking love it. And I was like, eventually we're going to get together. Steve and I are going to get together. And even right up through today, I'm like, okay, we're going to make this happen. I'm glad I did, because we're obviously soulmates in this war, and just our earlier conversation before we rolled the recording here, to see that you see things that I see in the religious order in this world and the country. Doesn't matter whether you are Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Hindu, Mormon, whatever.
Yep.
Simple fact is, we're under a control mechanism that's really not allowing us to unleash the truth of the universe on us, the great work and life of Christ. And I don't even know, as far as Muhammad, if his life was actually real, because, sitting with Russell J. Gold for a few days last week, learning when he'd gone into the Vatican with the power he holds. Most people are going to learn about that. I'm going to do a series on him, but the power he holds, was able to walk right into the Vatican, travel with no passport, and basically, sit across the table from these very high level people in the Vatican and have them admit, or one of the cardinals admit, yeah, we wrote the Bible, we wrote the Quran and the Torah because they wanted to create division, all that. You hear these things, you're like, oh my God. So, and some people will push back on that statement that I just made. I don't care what religion you are. They're all come from an honorable place. They were just dishonored by the writers and the story benders, because the only thing missing is we have not been exposed to the full power of our Creator, and the those who contributed to that information as time unfolded here. So it's good that we're all coming into our own to realize that, breaking out of the dogma of governments, of religion, of all these things that have limited our potential, limited our spiritual ascension, are coming down. The structure is coming down, and people like you have enough courage to step forward and say, you know what, cut the bullshit. Here's the deal. This is the truth. Yep. And I always say, truth by what it feels like, not by what it sounds like, or logic or reason.
What it feels like. I mean, it's
you're connected.
Mm-hmm. My hair is standing.
Now catch that. Truth by what it feels like. Okay, that's not how we determine truth. Our feelings are deceptive. And we can also a lot of times have just wrong thoughts in our head or whatnot. You can't judge the truth by how you're feeling. The Bible is our external source for truth, I guess you could say. In other words, we test everything against the Bible. Any sort of teaching, if it's not found in the Bible, then you need to be really careful. There's a lot of false teachers out there that start saying, well, blah blah blah, and then you're like, where's that in the Bible? And it's not there. They're making things up. So we need to be really careful about that, about not making things up that aren't in the Bible, and also things that blatantly contradict what the Bible is teaching. So that's a real problem. But notice him when he talks positively about Christ, and the Creator and all this, but he's talking about a spiritual ascension. He is heavily involved in the 17 movement. And then that's just unbelievable when he's like, Catholics wrote the Bible, wrote the Quran, and wrote the Torah, and all religions come from an honorable place. Like, what? There is no historical evidence. Like, the historical evidence completely contradicts that. I mean, the Jews have had the Torah, their Bible, since it was being written down as things were happening. Like, Moses is attributed to have written like the first 5 books of the Bible, and all these prophets were writing. I mean, this is well before Catholicism came on the scene. And even the original Christians, they weren't Catholic. You know, Catholicism came later, despite their claims that they try to say, you know, Peter was the first pope and all that, but that's, again, not a true statement. So Catholicism itself has added a tremendous amount to Christianity, um, and it has practices that blatantly contradict what the Bible teaches. But anyways, that was pretty staggering statement about you know, for him to say those things. So anyways, that was just a little bit on him. So like I said, I don't have, you know, I mean, I always liked Scott McKay. I don't have any personal axe to grind, but I mean, I do have to stand up for what the truth is. So, all right, the next person we're going to look at is um, Michael Flynn. So he went to Hank Kunneman's church. Now, I didn't know who Hank Kunneman was back at the time when all this stuff happened, but I've since learned that he is a verified false prophet. In fact, he actually had a prophecy that just came recently where Trump was going to select a woman to be the VP. Like he made that a while back, but obviously now Trump has selected JD Vance to be the VP. You know, I mean, hey, Kunneman had a 50-50 chance of being right, and you know, it wouldn't have been surprising if Trump had selected a woman, but he did not. So there's one right there. But there's, you know, lists, and there's these discernment channels where they keep track of all these verified false prophecies of these people. So anyways, Kunneman invites Michael Flynn into his church to speak, and Flynn leads the congregation in this prayer at the, I guess at the end of his speech or whatever. And it was this woman that we're seeing on the screen. Her name was Elizabeth Clare Prophet. She was like a new ager who was channeling demons, and we're going to see her channeling the demons and saying this stuff. And then we're going to see Flynn giving the exact same prayer virtually to this congregation. And later when he was called out on it, Flynn tried to say, oh, well, this is the prayer to Michael the Archangel. But if you go look at the prayer to Michael the Archangel, not that you should be praying to Michael the Archangel anyways, but even if it wasn't, that wasn't even the prayer. Michael the Archangel prayer was different than this. So we're just going to, this is a really good channel here. It's called Magical Mystery Church. And Laura, who runs this channel, does a great job of researching and bringing out like a ton of like these new age connections. She's talked a lot about Madame Blavatsky, all sorts of the New Apostolic Reformation. She's got some really good stuff on her channel. So I'd recommend spending some time hanging out there. But let me play this.
Were taught by Elizabeth Clare Prophet.
Are your instrument of those sevenfold rays and all your archangels. All of them.
And I am the instrument of those sevenfold rays and archangels, and I will not retreat. I will take my stand.
We will not retreat. We will stand our ground.
I will not fear to speak.
We will not fear to speak.
And I will be the instrument of God's will, whatever it is.
We will be the instrument of your will, whatever it is.
In the name of Archangel Michael and his legions, I am freeborn, and I shall remain freeborn.
In your name, and the name of your legions, we are freeborn, and we shall remain freeborn.
And I shall not be enslaved by any foe within or without.
And we shall not be enslaved by any foe, within or without. So help me God. God bless you. God bless America. Thank you very much.
So these are the sevenfold rays that Michael Flynn is just talking about, which emanate from the great source.
Great source.
Helena Blavatsky identifies the first.
Okay, so that's Madame Blavatsky, and like, see what I'm saying about her eyes? I mean, the woman really does look demon possessed.
First seven rays she said they were the primeval celestial beings, variously called the primordial seven. Helena Blavatsky also said it is Satan who is the god of our planet and the only god. And this is her magazine, Lucifer. So when Michael Flynn says, we are the instrument of your sevenfold rays, whose sevenfold rays? Satan or Lucifer is that source. And C.W. Ledbetter, 30.
Okay, so that's very disturbing. So there's that. So then, let's see here. The next website I wanted to show is just, I mean, it seems like Flynn, as best I can tell, maybe is somewhatly backpedaled on a lot of this 17 Anon stuff, because there's a video I'll show on from this thing here that shows them taking the oath, the where we go one, we go all oath. And let's see. Is this the video that does it? Let me see here. I think this is it. Whoops. I need to like replay it.
I, Jack Flynn, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. That I take this obligation freely. Without any mental reservation. Or purpose of evasion. And that I will well and faithfully. Discharge the duties. Of the office on which I am about to enter. So help me God. Where we go one, we go all. God bless America.
Okay, so that's their thing. Well, then they were like suing CNN because they were saying that this was just like a family oath and it had nothing to do with 17. But this was interesting. While some 17 and non-believers claim the phrase is taken from an inscription on a boat owned by former President John F. Kennedy, because he ties in a lot with this 17 stuff. The reality is that it's simply a phrase from the 1990s sailing movie White Squall that was subsequently co-opted by the 17 Anon movement. So, indeed, the exact wording used in the oath taken by the Flynns came from a message posted by 17 Anon's anonymous leader several weeks earlier, a message that also encouraged followers to take the oath. So, so basically this was the drop. Digital warriors take the oath and serve your country. And then they listed the oath, and that's what he did. So, but anyways, it went on to just say that, let's see, the Flynns in Tuesday's court filing, the Flynns claimed the saying had no connection to the extremist movement when they said it. It was not an oath of allegiance to 17 Anon or any kind of oath at all. It was a simple family July 4th statement of support for each other, lawyers for the Flynns said in the document filed Tuesday. So that seems sketchy. But at any event, and I'm trying to remember what happened with the lawsuit, if it got dropped. This is like 2021. I'm trying to remember what they said, but at any event, we're probably next week. I want to talk more about Flynn and the Clay Clark Reawaken America tour, because supposedly the two of them, Clay Clark and Flynn, started that whole Reawaken tour, and there's some concerning things about all that, and they also push 17 sort of stuff at that. So in addition to a lot of false prophets, but we're going to wrap this up. So just to recap, we've looked at the New Age connections to Letter 17 Anon, as well as 3 influencers who have been associated with Letter 17, and who all 3 have confirmed New Age connections. So questions we should be thinking about at this point. Number 1, and I said this last week, but who really is Letter 17 and what is their end game? We have failed predictions. We have them, influencers spouting anti-Semitism. We have New Age connections. we have the whole stringing the patriots along with the false hope of Trump's return in 2020, and trust the plan, and he's coming back, and all this stuff. We had just a total explosion of grifters and false prophets that emerged. We had the sudden rise of the Reawaken America tour with strong ties to Letter 17. We had the, again, false prophets and the New Apostolic Reformation movement, which is Clay Clark is tied to that, and so are all these different false prophets that speak at his events. So I did a video on the New Apostolic Reformation at the beginning of this series, so probably about 4 or 5 weeks ago, but it's on my channel. So, and there's also like Laura Magical Mystery Church. She's done a lot on the NAR. There's a lot of videos out there that talk about that. But okay, so that's one thing. Who is this, and really what's the agenda? Number two, what is the letter 17 map? The Great Awakening map that we looked at. I mean, does this actually represent the truth behind 17 that many so-called Anons are unaware of? I mean, Simon Parks is clearly a New Ager along with promoting aliens. Scott McKay talks about our spiritual ascension and Christ consciousness. And Michael Flynn is leading people in a false New Age prayer that was originally channeled from demons to Elizabeth Clare Prophet. And I also would mention Flynn is Catholic, if I didn't say that already. But then we have other Letter 17 influencers that are promoting anti-Semitism and slander against the Jews, such as Dr. IE17 on X. And and my thought when I started realizing how much of these influencers was spewing this stuff, okay, was this already the anti-Semitism there initially, which I personally think it was, because I remember somebody sent me one of these, like kind of like a movie, it's like 2 hours long. It was supposed to be all this history of, whatever, Q or 17 and all this stuff. But it was showing all this anti-Semitic stuff about the Jews killing Christian children to drink their blood or eat them or whatever it was. And they had a whole bunch of that stuff in, and I think it's about when I stopped watching. I didn't watch too much of it. But this is something that I feel like either was there at the beginning or else white nationalist types, racist types jumped in on it and co-opted. And some of these channels, like that IE17 guy on Twitter, or on X, he's got a huge following. So, and he's spewing all this crap, basically anti-Christian crap, even though he's claiming to be a follower of Yeshua. I guess that sounds so much better than saying I'm a follower of Jesus Christ for some reason. But all right, so is this a movement that's disguised under the guise of individual freedoms and patriotism, and stopping child sex trafficking, all that kind of stuff? Or is it really, in the final analysis, this is actually promoting an antichrist agenda of a false Jesus with this Christ consciousness, false end times teachings, which we've covered that already the last several weeks, and New Age teachings and anti-Semitism? I mean, you guys need to think about that and see, what the answer is. What is all this pointing to? Because I personally think that as professing Christians, if you're caught up in following any of these Letter 17 influencers or being involved in as a part of this whole movement, I would encourage you to really pray about that and get out of it, because this is not where Christians need to be. This is a false deception that's being peddled. And, we talked about that with Melissa Red Pill, the World, with her. She's heavily into 17 and has basically rewritten all these Bible prophecies according to 17 teachings, I guess you could say. But, it's like, oh, we're fighting the New World Order and we're going to take down the evil, satanic, pedophile cabal. And then all the white hats and patriots will be ushered into the millennium and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, that's not what the Bible's teaching. you are not saved. You do not have right standing with Jesus Christ just because you might be a good person by the world's standards. Any sin in your life separates you from God. And if you have not repented of sin and turned your life over to Jesus Christ and received his forgiveness, you're not following Jesus Christ. As much as you may think, well, I'm a good person, I'm doing good things. Well, that's not what the Bible is teaching. So, get your life right with the Lord if it's not, and come out of this false movement. So, all right, well, I'm gonna stop it there. I think we've gone over an hour at this point. So let me make myself a little bit smaller there. Yeah, we're like an hour and 5 minutes. But yeah, we'll be back next week. Like I said, we're gonna look at this some more detail. And if you have questions or comments, feel free to put them there. And we'll see you next time. God bless.